Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. We're here this afternoon for a work session, and our discussion item this afternoon is progress update on our 2024 to 2028 strategic plan. I'm Kristen Stevens, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. With me is my fellow commissioner, John Kofalis, and on the phone we have Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally. We have our county manager, Lorinda Volker, at the end of the table. And to kick this item off, we have our Director of Performance, Budget, and Strategy, Josh Fudge. We also have a lot of people in the room, so if you come up to speak, we'll have you introduce yourself, but want to say welcome to everyone, and we're excited for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the introduction. The agenda, as always, is basically walking through each goal and the objectives and sub-objectives.
For justice involved residents in our community when it comes to housing, since this overarching goal is housing related. Under that goal, we convened local service providers from June 2024 through the beginning of this year. And we started to intersect with other work that was being done. And Community Justice Alternatives is doing a SIM mapping project, which would feed right into this goal. So at this point in time, we're no longer meeting, and we are waiting for that sequential intercept mapping workshop, which is scheduled to happen April 29th and 30th. And that will help us identify those gaps. So that's where we are with that one. The number 3B is updating definitions for people experiencing homelessness. This sub-objective came up as we hit barriers for the federal definition of what homelessness is, and sometimes it creates gaps for special populations. In March, I attended the National Low Income Housing Coalition convening, so I was able to hear what was happening on the federal level, as we all are hearing every day. And there has just been a suggestion to lean more into local definitions of homelessness and aligning funding sources where we can on the local level, considering what's happening at our federal level, and possibly updating this language to lean into the strategic plan that is being created by Homeward Alliance. That spans across Larimer County. And so the suggested language is there. Participate in the completion of Homeward Alliance's strategic plan to address homelessness. One of the goals of that is to have shared language across the county, and that would include our definition of what homelessness is, so that we no longer have those gaps.
And I'll just jump in. I neglected to mention in the introduction that these little arrow signs are spots where we are seeking direction, mainly to update sub-objective language, such as in this instance, basically replacing that, updating definitions to the new language you see here. And then there's one other objective that has new sub-objective language to add. So sorry for neglecting to point out that this is an area where we need direction to continue.
That's great. Commissioner Kofalis, any direction you'd like to offer on this item?
To that question, my direction is that I support the updated sub-objective language. I do have other questions, but I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So are we talking about Objective 3 or the, because I see arrows on the agenda too, so we're just talking about Objective 3 right now?
We're talking about Objective 3 and specifically 3B, updating the definitions of people experiencing homelessness. And so there's, and I don't know if you have the slides in front of you, but.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so there's some updated sub-objective language that's included.
The one that's the possible updated subjective language, yeah, I support that.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, I support it too. And I appreciate you explaining sort of, I mean, I think we're all aware of the situation at the federal level. And I think you're absolutely right to leaning into this work locally is probably the best way for us to proceed at this point. And I'm glad that Homeward Alliance is doing a strategic plan because I think, you know, we can build from that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Right, our last sub-objective is around coordinating regionally around land use. This objective was led by our Climate Smart initiative, and Rebecca Everett created a group, a land use focus team that's been meeting since the end of last year, and then that group has been kind of on pause just until Rebecca Everett returns. Something that came out of that group as well was talking about Proposition 123 and how that's an effort happening across the state. And so we did host a Prop 123 convening on April 3rd, and we had over 30 attendees with representation from across our region, really. But within Larimer County, we had representation from Fort Collins, Loveland, Berthoud, and then, of course, DOLA came and presented. We had Estes Park. This is all local government staff that works in the community development departments. The goals of that convening was to walk away with understanding and shared definitions around how we meet our commitment of increasing affordable housing by 3% each year, and also start to share best practices around how we're going to establish the fast track requirement of Prop 123, which each jurisdiction needs to have in place by 2027, which means they will approve affordable housing development in 90 days, the plans within 90 days, which is very, very fast compared to what we do right now. So just talking, since we are all doing that at the same time, it provides that opportunity of regional conversation so we can do it together and in alignment, so jurisdictions aren't in competition, but we're attracting developers to the whole region.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Leah? Commissioner Shattuck McNally?
No, just want to commend Leah and everyone working on this. It is a very complex area, and I appreciate the convening and bringing folks together. We can learn from each other, and I just applaud your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cavalas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, Leah. Regarding the Prop 123 matter and the meeting that you folks had on April 3rd, can you say a little bit more about who these participants were? Was it government folks? Was it nonprofit? Maybe an overview of the highlights of who the participants were. And also related to Prop 123, I just read an article in the paper, maybe it was the Colorado Sun, that said that DOLA has set aside Department of Local Affairs has set aside $2 million as that could be available to jurisdictions if they can somehow, by the end of this year, actually, well, I'm sure you know all this, come up with the specific proposal for how we might cut the land use, decision time to 90 days. So I'm wondering if that's our goal, is to try to meet that deadline and perhaps get some additional funds to help with planning, and also who participated in the convening.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So the convening was geared towards local government staff. Since the topics were about how are we tracking our unit count towards that 3% commitment, and how are we developing our fast track, we really needed the people who are doing that work. So we invited community development staff, planners, and others within those jurisdictions that are responsible for those commitments, and reporting them to DOLA. So that's who was invited. As far as the grant that you're talking about, I believe it's by June of next year to receive that money, but I could be mistaken, and I'll follow up and look into it. But it's to have your fast track in place early, and there's kind of like an incentive to the jurisdiction to receive those funds. And that's something we learned about at the Prop 123 convening. That's the first time we'd all heard of it, so.
May I follow up? If I'm correct in what I read in the newspaper article, and perhaps that initial deadline was the end of this year, and I'm sure you'll follow up, is it realistic that we could develop these fast-track land use approvals for housing projects within that time frame by the end of the year? Or is that not realistic?
I don't want to speak for our community development staff because that's where that would come out of. But from prior conversations that I've had with Rebecca Everett, I do think that it's realistic that Larimer County can come up with something. Our responsibility is a little different than, say, City of Fort Collins or City of Loveland because they do have a lot more development.
Of course.
And DOLA has shared template resolutions that we can build from for the county level.
May I do two more? Thank you. I'm wondering, I thought that we were doing an updated housing assessment. Is that reflected in 3A? I didn't see housing assessment as part of our sub-objective or whatever we're calling them. Or should that be, Josh? I don't know.
It's not reflected in any of these, but that is something that we are doing. It would likely fall under this 3C. It's not an affordable housing needs assessment, but a housing
Yes,
needs
I-
assessment across our region, so it could probably fall into,
It seems to me
all.
that would be appropriate to include that. That's an important project.
Sure, we can either add that to the sub-objective language itself, or we could just report on its progress as part of this.
absolutely.
Okay, last question. Regarding the sequential intercept mapping and that effort, and I see our Community Justice Alternatives Director is at the edge of her seat and didn't want her to get off too easy, but I would appreciate maybe a little bit of an update on that and maybe a little bit of a description of what we're talking about to help folks who are criminal justice system involved and how this is meant to help them transition and figure out about housing. I hope that's okay.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Emily Humphrey. I'm the Director of Community Justice Alternatives. We're very excited to bring the Sequential Intercept Mapping Project or workshop back here to Larimer County. What that is back in 2020, we were able to get a grant by SAMHSA, which is a federal grant, to have them come in and map the intersection between criminal justice and behavioral health at different intercepts. For example, Intercept 0 is no law enforcement connection at all. It's just crisis out in the community and what kind of resources are there that's independent from a law enforcement track, going all the way up to when someone enters the criminal justice system to exiting the criminal justice system, and what resources are there with between behavioral health and justice involvement, and what can we do to try to maybe prevent someone from penetrating further into the criminal justice system. We did that, but unfortunately, when we got that grant, we had to do it virtual because COVID started. And instead of doing all of the intercepts, we were only able to do 3. So part of our objective for quality of life was to revisit that, to really determine what things we could do to figure out our gaps. And for example, in 2020, we did not have Longview. We did not have our competency docket, and we did not have peer support. So we already identified gaps that we've changed since 2020, but we know there's other gaps that we could find in our community. So we reached out to have another grant, and we were unsuccessful in obtaining that grant, but we did receive some funding, specifically from the Sheriff's Department, to bring that group back in and to do an in-person workshop for all of the intercepts. And that is the dates that we talked about earlier. It's a day-and-a-half workshop where we will get a lot of individuals from our community. There's about to be about 60 people, both government, law enforcement, nonprofits in the community, housing, to really look at the gaps that there are between individuals who have mental health needs and have the potential of having that intersection with criminal justice. So we'll get a report out. Last time we got about an 80-page report that identified our strengths and our weaknesses. We'll have the same thing. So then the team can come back together, determine how do we fix those gaps that have been identified.
Thank you very much, Emily, and I'm sure you'll update us accordingly, some of the outcomes of all of that.
Absolutely. And when we address housing, it's the same thing. When we're talking about the last intercept is the re-entry back into our community and the services that individuals need. And so that's where the housing element would come in, is how do we make sure that these folks have solid places to live and to come back into the community in a successful way.
Great, thank you again. And it's helpful to be reminded that we're looking at the continuum of intercepts perhaps as you
Yes,
described?
to go back to the original ones that we mapped to see if there's differences, and then the new ones that we hadn't completed.
Great.
So we'll go through a whole revamp of the whole
Okay.
thing.
Thank you for answering my question.
You bet.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any questions for you before we move on?
No, I think Commissioner Cavall's covered quite a bit of ground. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. I would just say, I think with, I don't think we need to rewrite this, the sub-objective language on the 3C for the, I think we can just include the, any updates around the housing assessment, when we do the report. Because I think that that is a comprehensive enough title, and I don't want to mess with the language too much.
Madam
Right.
Chair, I would, if I might, I agree with what you just said. I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Good. Thank you. So goal 4 is county operations, and objective 1 under that is to optimize county processes and systems. Our objective team lead for this is Julie Elser, but I'll be pinch hitting for her today, along with Laura Walker. The first sub-objective under this item is artificial intelligence, and as you probably remember from Monday, that team came to a work session and reported on the survey results of how employees are using artificial intelligence, and also a draft generative AI policy. And so that group is working as they explained there. Sub-objective 1B, support services resource allocation. We are going, Julie Elser will be distributing a survey to employees, not countywide, but a group of employees as identified by our department heads groups who really work closely and often with support services to get their feedback on how those relationships are going. That team did also suggest new sub-objective language. If you remember at the last quarter, we kind of previewed this a little bit. The allocation of support services will be considered during the budget process. And so this sub-objective team now is going to work more on strengthening those relationships between customer departments and support services. So they did propose some new sub-objective language. And Commissioner Shattuck McNally, on the version that I emailed yesterday, just so you're aware, the first word, there was a late thought by the team to change improve to strengthen. So the new sub-objective language is strengthen customer relationships with support services and increase cost transparency through education. So I apologize that you didn't see that strengthen instead of improve.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so once that team gets that survey back, they'll look at ways that support services, and really a lot of these ways are through transparency, how and why support services departments like mine do things the way they do, charge things the way they do, and things of that nature. So if it's okay, we'll make that change.
It's okay with me. Is it okay with everyone else to make that change?
Yes, it's okay with me, Madam Chair.
Yes, but I
Thank
did
you.
want to point something out.
Please go
For
ahead, Commissioner
consideration.
Capellas. Mhm.
I'm just wondering where it says, certainly agree, strengthen customer relationships with support services. I presume we're referring to internal customers.
Correct.
And so I don't know if there would be any confusion if the, public looking at because I think our goal is to be very transparent. Would they think that when we say customer service with support service, are we talking about the community people that we serve, or are we talking about our own folks? So maybe you could.
Sure.
I just offer that you could bring it back to the shop, and if you think there's any merit there, you might want to consider adding that. And maybe it's not necessary.
Lorinda Volker.
I wonder if we might just add the word internal in front of support services.
What did she say?
If we add the word internal in front of support
Well, that's what I was
services.
suggesting.
Yeah.
I'm just
add the single
for
word.
consideration, that's all.
I think that sounds fine to me. I think you're right. It could be confusing to folks if they're just looking online at the strategic plan, so that makes sense.
Sure, we can make that change. So objective 1C is around security. That team has been updating and now will be consolidating two redundant policies related to security. Those are the safeguards and security policy. Those are separate from privacy and security personnel. The team may also look at a section related to a public address system here in the building that could be added to an existing policy. So that's the direction that team will be taking next. And then for sub-objective 1D related to community indicators and key performance measures, Julie Elser, our objective team leader, has been having meetings with departments and elected offices to create those key performance measures and community indicators. So the vision is that they would have some draft new performance measures basically early next year. So the current process we use where we do quarterly work sessions with a service area will continue until that gets updated using the current performance measures. And that's it for objective 1.
Any questions or comments on objective 1? Commissioner Shattuck McNally?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, we can move on.
So objective 2 is collaborating and coordinating with partners and stakeholders. Sub-objective 2A, optimizing grant opportunities. This team has been, or rather we have engaged with Sustainable Strategies as a grant management firm on a retainer basis, and so we've been having regular meetings with them. They update us on grant opportunities that are coming available both at the state and federal level. And they have really done a great job of providing updates on federal funding streams and what's going on with those. And we have also engaged HDR, which is another grant management firm. They can do one-off grant applications, and they're more suited towards big projects related to infrastructure. So they're being used on a case-by-case basis. Sustainable Strategies has created a roadmap with department heads to gather our priorities as far as grants that we want to go after those areas. And there will be an upcoming presentation to the objective team by the new Grants Review Committee. This committee used to exist here at the county, but ceased, I think, back during the Great Recession in 2008 or 9, if I remember correctly. But the Finance Department has offered to basically recreate that so that this team is available to review grant opportunities and also help manage grants as well. And then for objective 2, sub-objective 2B, co-location with community partners. This team has done an inventory of county staff working outside of assigned county work location and is being shared with individual department communication staff with the goal of creating a more complete picture, including those departments that are not members of the objective team, just so everybody is aware of what services are provided out in the community. And then finally, I'm happy to report that we have our first sub-objective, which is complete. That was the updating of the facilities master plan, and that was completed at a work session back in January 15th. Any questions on goal area 4, objective 2?
Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any questions?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Kafalis.
I also do not have any questions, just appreciation.
Great. And finally, objective 3 related to supporting and developing leadership. As you might remember, at the last quarterly update, we reported that the objective team leader for this objective had left county employment, and so we were going to be reviewing this. And we would like to take a little more time because it sort of became clear as this team did its initial work that a lot of the goals of this objective are really actually already operationalized elsewhere in the county. There are training and leadership development opportunities, and so we're going to continue to take a look at this and come back to a future update with some recommendations.
So just to add on to that, Laura Walker, Human and Economic Health Director, thank you for having us here today. Just a little bit more of what the next steps look like for this objective, since we don't have an objective leader. My aim is to especially after the last department heads meeting this past Friday, there was an extensive presentation by Bridget Paris, our HR director, around making improvements to our recruitment strategies and how much more room for growth and improvement there is in that space, which is links directly to how we recruit and retain, a good, diverse employee base at the county. So I want to be following up with her about how specifically those initiatives can align with this objective, and also what her plan is for the ongoing assessment and evaluation of the HR catalog for leadership training opportunities within the counties. Again, because I think their work is going to be a backbone piece to operationalizing what this objective looks like at the end of this process. So.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions on this item? Commissioner Kafalas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Laura. Not a question necessarily, but just a thought, and that is, although it's not directly to at least the traditional definition of leadership, because I think we're all leaders in this work that we're doing, it seems to me one example of operationalizing and improving our recruitment processes is with our child welfare workers. I think a couple of years ago, we updated how we do the job descriptions, and I think that was very helpful in bringing folks in with skills and experience and perhaps some lived experience there. Would that be an example of operationalizing some of this?
That is a very good example, and it also reminds me to look across the county at different job classifications that have historically had either high turnover or low recruitment pools, and bring those folks to the table where they've made improvements in specific job areas. So that's a very good reminder, and I'll include that in the next steps that we go through.
Thank you. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any questions or comments? Okay. Laura, I have a question or comment kind of on this. So, we have leadership programs in place, and how do we make sure people can really take advantage of those? So I think about people who maybe don't see themselves as in a leadership role, but we see them as leaders. We see them, leading their teams or their coworkers, and we see that ability. So how do, I think some of that is about, supervisors being like teasing that out a little bit, but maybe how do we even give supervisors that ability to say, hey, like, have you thought about this leadership program? Like, maybe I don't have time to take that because I'm so busy with my work. Well, let's figure out a way to help you do that. I mean, I'm sure that work is being done, and, we don't supervise at that level, but just like, I mean, are there ways to identify any gaps that, or people there again that aren't, not everybody sees themselves in that role, but they really are leaders. And so, how do we, and then, just providing that path for what it looks like to move up in the organization, right? In some roles, there maybe aren't those opportunities, but in a lot of roles, there are opportunities to increase your pay and, get a different title and really kind of have that trajectory. So I guess that and there again, I'm not telling anyone how to do their job, but I just feel like that's a space where I worry that maybe people can't figure out how to get there, and how do we kind of help those folks? Because I think that helps them, that also helps retention, obviously, when people see that they can move up, that they can get more pay, that they can develop these skills that they might not have ever had an opportunity to work on.
Yeah. So I think this is a case of we have always had good intentions around this, but when you don't revisit it in a very tangible way frequently, then people lose the message over time. And so I think what I would be encouraging in my conversations with Bridget would be to say, when is a good time for some kind of targeted recruitment effort towards our HR catalog? And translating for people how these skill sets, although they might be a classic set of skills that are good for a frontline supervisor or a second level manager, how they can be translated into helping people who are natural leaders in their space, who don't ever want to be a supervisor maybe. That's not part of their career path. So how can we get creative about the tools that we have to not have them apply to the old traditional models of expanding your career path?
That's exactly what I'm thinking about. Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate
I
that.
appreciate
Yeah,
the
I think
reminder.
it's just, you're right. It's something that we do, and how do we make sure we're doing it right?
So next is goal 3 related to our natural and built environment. Objective 1, addressing current and future transportation needs. The first sub-objective to that is to find long-term sustainable funding for capital projects. And basically, the county will be moving forward with an educational campaign about the need for sustainable funding for transportation early this summer. And then public polling on the issue will be done later this summer in June or July.
Hi, Commissioners. Mark Peterson, Engineering Director. I'm standing in for Leslie Ellis today as well. Again, I think you're pretty well informed of what's going on with the transportation funding aspect. We're in the process or about to kick off more public education because, as Magellan had pointed out from the post-election polling that they conducted, we had 37% of the people who went to vote had little or no information about that measure, and another 40% had some information. So that's the intent of moving forward with that process. And there would be another round of polling occurring after the public information campaign has occurred here. So we'll have another polling touch point to come back to you with towards the end of June is the goal there.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Commissioner Kefales?
Thank you, and thank you, Mark. A question that comes to mind is, and I think we've touched on this in previous conversations, how will we coordinate the efforts of the education and awareness campaign with incorporating some of that, for example, in community conversations or common ground sessions and all of that?
So the intent is to actually develop some one-page and even a slide deck that you all and other county staff can take out on the road as you have opportunities to have meetings with citizen groups or interested parties. That's available to you to use, and it's a consistent message that's being presented out there. So that's forthcoming as part of this effort.
Do you have a sense of when that material might be available?
Early May is,
Great.
I think, our intent.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shannock McNally, any questions about this?
No, I might have some questions about the sites coming up, but not at this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate this. I think that'll be really helpful to have that slide deck and then one pager. I took some of the materials that we had when we were for the last time, and people will be surprised at how little of their tax dollars from their property tax goes to transportation, and how much need there is. And also just mentioning that CDOT is losing about, I want to say $100 million from their budget or more, and that MMOF funds are potentially going away or at least getting slashed. And so even funding that we had last year is no longer there this year.
Yep.
And so the situation has become even more dire than it once was. And so, we have a project that, that could be on hold if we don't get those multimodal option fund dollars. And so, it's, I'm happy to help with this. I think we all are happy to help and figure out how to get the messaging out, but glad that we have someone hired, because it's somewhat unclear where people get their where they get their information from, right? Some people get it from social media, some people get it from the news, some people get it from, their neighbor. So I think that having professionals help us kind of get that messaging out is really crucial, and I'm glad that we went that route because we want everybody to understand this situation before we ask them for a tax. So thank you. All right, 1B.
All right. So 1B is strengthening coordination with partners, regional partners, on construction and things of that nature. The county is implementing a new special events permitting system. That was a service proposal, I think, in this year's budget or last year's. And that could also act then as a replacement for the current road event status system, and also could perhaps be used to coordinate construction schedules with partners. And as I understand it, the team working on that implementation is working with IT to see if those items can be combined and perhaps coordinated with our regional partners. And, sorry.
Did you? Okay.
And then finally, 1C is related to enhancing regional transportation. And the Climate Smart Future Ready team is working on that, and they will be providing an update on that at a future work session of theirs.
Great, thank you. We'll look forward to that.
So objective 2 related to developing a sustainable built environment. We have Heidi Pruis, who is the objective team leader for this objective, and I will let her present on these items.
Thank you very much for the time this afternoon, really, today. We have 5 sub-objectives that you can see up there, 5 bullet points. We've been coming back and reporting to you individually on each one. So today we're going to skip down and hit the 4th bullet. So this slide is just a reminder of all the categories that are within this objective. So we're going to focus on 2D. If you want to go to the next one, which is developing a circular economy. And it is part of the Climate Smart Future Ready overall plan. In the Climate Smart Future Ready program, you can see we've got 2 main actions. One of them is to reduce materials going to the landfill, and the second one is to support development of new reuse technologies. In order to do that, I brought with me our very capable and knowledgeable solid waste team. Go.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Alex Yu. I'm a project manager with the Solid Waste Department. I'm going to be filling in for Dwayne Penny, our director, today. So forgive me if I don't have all the answers. If you want to go to the next slide. So our department has been hard at work at developing a program that's environmentally and financially sustainable over the last few years. As many of you may be aware, we have about 1 year left of airspace capacity at our current landfill. And this did not come by surprise. There's a lot of long-term planning that's been in place. Most specifically was the creation of the Solid Waste Infrastructure Master Plan, or the SWIMP. And that was developed with municipal partners, industry experts, haulers, citizens, and many others. And that plan was adopted in 2018 by Larimer County. This plan included several Tier 1 facilities, 2 of which I'm going to introduce today. The first is the new North Landfill facility, and it is actively under construction right now. In the SWIMP, it was acknowledged that the landfill here in Fort Collins was the primary asset of the current waste infrastructure program. So that was carried forward to, the decision was made to build a new site, and it should be nearing completion at the end of this year. So we're going to be ready to have that landfill operational probably Q1, Q2 of next year. And some of the benefits of the new landfill, our current landfill funds our household hazardous waste program, education programs, some diversion programs, and then future facilities as well. If you could go to the next slide. And the next piece that is being in the implementation phase right now is the central diversion and transfer station. So that facility is going to be located at our current landfill, and that construction just began a couple months ago as well. This facility is going to allow us to retain our current customers who are using the facility, and it's convenient, cost-effective way to manage waste and potentially divertible materials here in Larimer County. So controlling the disposal rates is going to allow us to incentivize diversion and to be able to divert materials out of the landfill. This facility is also going to be home to a place to drop off source-separated recyclables, appliances, metals, tires, mattresses, green waste, everything that we're currently diverting. And it's also going to allow us to kind of kickstart a construction and demolition processing facility. So we're going to be able to piggyback off of this facility's infrastructure to further process materials that are currently being landfilled. So with that, we are excited to actually be in the construction phase of these 2 new facilities, and they will be operational early next year.
That's great news, Alex. Thank you. Any questions for Alex? Commissioner Kvalas.
Thank you for sharing that great news. I noticed that it said under construction. I said, when did that start? Because for some reason I thought we were looking at this summer to begin construction. So that's very good news. Thank you, Alex. Question I have is, are you able to provide any update regarding, I believe there was a grant that we were hoping to get for the construction and demolition facility. Is there any update on that? And I know we've worked out some of the financials for that and the cooperation for that, but anything on this state grant or whatever it was?
Yeah, absolutely. So our department had applied for a construction demolition grant last year through the state of Colorado. Unfortunately, we were not awarded that grant. We were very close to it. The project in itself was just not determined to be shovel ready. There's a bit of permitting and air compliance concerns specifically that we are actively working through right now. And we are interested in applying for that grant again this year, now that we've made a lot of progress.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any questions for Alex or Heidi?
No, I'm very excited about this news and the progress. This is the slides I'm anxious to hear about. Well done, everyone. Very excited. I can't wait to come see the progress or get a chance to view what it looks like. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty excited about this happening and construction happening, and look forward to seeing, if there are any ways that we can help when it comes time to pursue that C&D diversion grant. We're happy to provide any kind of support or seek support from our fellow municipalities or anyone. So, because I think that's a really important piece, right? There's a lot of construction, demolition, things that go into the landfill, and not every single bit is recyclable, like roofing material isn't, but there is a lot that is recyclable, and it's just not happening now. So, and I think people think it might be happening now, and it really isn't happening now, right?
Right, that's right.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Just don't want to, wouldn't want to be remiss, but if you would be kind enough to convey our gratitude to Mr. Penny, tell him thanks,
Absolutely.
and the rest of your team over there. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Commissioner Shattuck got disconnected, so we need to call her back.
Okay. We'll just pause for just a second.
Hello. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner. We have you back, it sounds like, so we're gonna,
Yeah, my apologies.
no worries, no worries. We are just about to start Goal 3. So we will
Sounds great.
move ahead. Thank you.
So Objective 3 of Goal 3 is related to developing a sustainable natural environment. There are quite a few action items under this sub-objective, but they're really summarized here. And I'm filling in for Megan Flanagan, who's the objective team leader, who cannot be here today, but they are working on all of these items and making progress. They may bring new sub-objective language to differentiate between some of the active efforts by the county, things like the completion of a new master plan for natural resources. That's an active county activity. And then there are a lot of activities going on by community partners, such as nonprofits in the state. They have quite a list of items. I attended their last meeting. I think there's 24 items in this spreadsheet, and they walked through all of them, and I couldn't actually keep track of all of them. But a lot of work is being done to further this sub-objective. They are also working on identifying a metric to report on forest management projects being implemented countywide through the Colorado State Forest Service Forest Tracker application. And so I would envision they would be coming back next quarter with more of an update. So that's the report for this particular objective.
Okay.
Next is Goal 2, which is related to quality of life. The first objective being promoting health and well-being for our community. Sub-objective 1A is related to social support and connection, and sub-objective 1B is promoting health in our vulnerable populations. The current context calls for a heightened focus on social connection and sense of belonging. The County Health Improvement Plan, to that end, is championing volunteerism, continuing to work on completing the Birth at Life Center, networking around that, doing surveys in mobile home parks, and mapping out eviction prevention activities. Also related to these sub-objectives, the Health District has historically conducted a community health assessment to identify service gaps. In this survey cycle, they are partnering with the Colorado Health Institute and the Colorado Health Access Survey to enhance the data analysis and reduce the survey burden. That team is currently in the field conducting that survey, and UC Health is currently working on the Community Health Needs Assessment. So the objective team leader, Joe Buckley, is here if you have any further questions.
Are there questions, commissioners? Commissioner Shattuck McNally?
No, thanks.
Commissioner Kafalis? Go ahead.
I think a lot of good work has been done in this space, and certainly in regards to efforts to be more inclusive of folks up in Red Feather Lakes, and I know Joe has been very helpful. I'm wondering regarding the survey that is apparently out there, were we successful in getting specific questions regarding some of the rural healthcare access needs as part of that survey?
Yeah, so my understanding is that the questions are going to be maintained from what the Colorado Health Institute does for their entire community health assessment. But we'll have some preliminary data in August from the health district to report back on that. And if that doesn't report back on what we're looking for, the next piece is that me and folks from UC Health, like Aspen Club, like Joanne, and folks from CSU Extension are all now going up once a month to Red Feather to the North 40 Food Bank just to make sure that we're there, hearing from residents, and we'll have that opportunity every month to survey residents and understand more needs, should that be a good opportunity if that data doesn't give us enough information.
Thank you. That's great. And I think Joanne from UC Health
Yeah.
invited me to join you folks June 26th.
Yes. Yeah, we'd love to have you. Great.
I'll just be a fly on the wall.
Well, come join anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you.
Can we, with the mobile home park surveying, who's doing that?
That's awesome.
You are, okay.
Yeah, I can speak more to it generally, or if you have a specific
Yeah,
question.
I mean, are we just, is that just parks in the, outside the urban areas that we're surveying? And what are we surveying on, kind of?
Yeah, so last year, our health department got some funding from CDPHE that we partnered with MIVOS to complete a survey. And we had a really great response rate. It was over 140 residents. And the MIVOS advocacy team said, this is just the start, let's keep it going. And so they've wanted to continue that with us and the health department using our kind of background with data analysis to support their advocacy goals and their goals in understanding resident councils and the needs of residents. So that's currently in the development process. We want to make sure we're not oversampling, so we're meeting up with City of Fort Collins and what they're already asking about and making sure we understand, parks like Timber Ridge that are outside of city limits. How can the county be a good support? So we've also joined their monthly MIVOS meetings. There was one last night. This will ultimately be led by the resident leaders, and then we'll be able to support on the data side.
And will that be surveying around sort of quality of life, like around all issues? Because I know there's water quality issues and there's been some major concerns about that, but will this extend beyond sort of those kind of things that CDPHE is directly involved in?
Yeah, I think it has potential too. From our end, we're really interested at the health department in the social determinants of health. And the subcommittees of MIVOS right now are around water quality, neighborhood safety, and infrastructure. So those will be the first top 3 ones. But we're also interested really in how can we use some of our county, kind of like Aaliyah spoke to earlier, local resources around water and reporting it up to MPOP so that we're making sure that's a direct line as possible. So I could also see a survey being more of a quick submit and response, depending on the direction those leaders who know their community best would like it to go. But since it's all in development, we're completely open to input.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like you guys are on the right direction and,
Okay.
just, yeah, the social determinants of health. I mean, I will say that I think that this objective, as we move into an environment with less funding and less funding for vulnerable populations, I feel like this is a great place that we need to really focus on the work that we're doing, and I think this work becomes so important. I mean, health disparities are really exacerbated when there's no funding or people get dropped off Medicaid. And so, and then eviction prevention mapping, I mean, how do we use the limited dollars in preventing evictions and seeing where the most need is and seeing what's happening. So I commend you for this work, and I think that, let's kind of, we'll just kind of keep working together and figuring this out. But I said, like I said, I think that this, in my mind, becomes elevated because we have so many people that are vulnerable in our community, and that and many of the things that are happening at the federal level are targeting those communities. So, Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Joe. I just staying with the mobile home park surveying discussion. I know that recently we had some informal conversations with Aaliyah's team, the housing stability folks, and it was brought to our attention as part of state law that there was another mobile home park up for sale, 24 units, the Terry Cove mobile home park, and the list price was $2 million. And the question that came up is, how much are we doing proactively to engage with residents of mobile home parks? Because a lot of they don't have the infrastructure, the leadership infrastructure, HOAs or resident councils. And I forget who, there's Lexi and then there's the other person, Erin.
Yeah.
And she indicated that there is some proactive work going, but we never had a chance to close that loop. Do you know anything about that? Is part of the surveying helping people understand if they wish to organize themselves, they might be better prepared should there be an opportunity for a resident-owned community? That's what I'm getting at, I guess.
To be honest, I don't know that our surveying will hit on that, but I think the MIVO's advocacy work will, just because they were advocates in the last kind of round of purchasing. And I know Erin recently hosted a couple different webinars. One I attended with her was offered by the state on kind of how do you go about the process of buying a park. And then she's recently hosted webinars for park owners on the process they can follow around different priorities, whether that be towing or selling your park or finding management and training them to be that 24/7 contact. So that's as much as I think I can, trustfully speak to her work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll try to follow up with Erin and perhaps get more details. Thank you very much.
No, yeah. Thank you so much for your interest.
Thank you.
So sub-objective 1C is related to the sequential intercept model, which we pretty much addressed back during Aaliyah's item. So that workshop will be happening later this month, and we'll have a report on what happens at our next quarterly update. So under Goal 2, Quality of Life, Objective 2 is supporting an equitable economy. And I am joined by Vanessa from Economic and Workforce Development to walk through this one.
Actually, I'm from Human Services.
Sorry,
That's
my
all good,
bad.
though. Hi, Vanessa Fuel, Division Manager with the Department of Human Services. I am pinch hitting today for Kelsey Bond.
Oh, yeah, can you, the button, yep.
Oh, and the red light is on, it's on. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Once again, Vanessa Fuel, Human Services Division Manager. Standing in today for Kelsey Bond from Economic and Workforce Development, and I need to really give Kelsey the credit for the enormous lift on the background for this sub-objective. So supporting an equitable economy, and 2A is promoting an equitable economy. The Economic and Workforce Development did a lot of background around how dollars flow from a large institution like the county out into the community. Specifically looking at food and beverage services, because we host meetings, we order food, we are a large purchaser of food in our community. So really thinking then about, are we leveraging local businesses? Are we leveraging franchises, or are we leveraging national chains? All of which do provide economic benefit to our community, but being able to map how much of those dollars stay local when we buy local versus if we're buying from a national chain, for example. And there's a lot of really fantastic graphics that they have. It's rooted in, like I said, a lot of research and science around mapping where the dollars go. So with that, bringing to Larimer County the power of the P-card training. So thinking about those staff who order food and beverage, and training those folks on trying to increase how often they are purchasing local. So we have had a couple of great meetings with our finance department who really welcomed this concept with open arms. It's been a fantastic collaboration with them. So they worked together, Kelsey and finance worked together to put together a training that is recorded, so at any time they can provide that to a new P-card holder. Sometimes when you get a new P-card, it can be a little overwhelming with all of the rules and how you use the system and reconcile payments and all those kinds of things. So having this recording available to reference later is really a great support for this effort. So what the Economic and Workforce Development Department offered to Human Services as well as other departments was a purchase analysis. So they were able to take all of the purchases that we've had, code them, and give us back information about how we're spending our dollars and how much of our departmental level dollars stay in our community versus go on from there. That's helping then to set targets around how much we would like to increase our purchasing of using local vendors for food and beverage purchases. That is not to say we don't infuse local dollars locally through other vendor relationships that we have. There's lots of contracts that we have that are with local businesses, but really honing in on the food and beverage piece. So in addition to that, just checking my notes here, the Economic and Workforce Development Department has built partnerships with the Extension Program, doing food and safety training, helping businesses get into catering, and then how do they seek our business? If you have a new vendor that comes, right, people are starting businesses all the time, how do they get connected then? How do they become known to us? Really trying to bridge that relationship with Extension. Okay. Oh, and added green purchasing content. I'm not really sure what that is referencing, but I'm guessing businesses might be able to have some, to be able to say that they are, using disposable products, things like that, or reusable products rather. Okay, the purchasing analysis, and then I think I have the second.
Okay, next slide.
Can I add to this? Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Go ahead.
I sound like a frog. I wanted to say thank you to Human Services for raising their hand and saying, yes, analyze how much food we're buying and from where, and talk to us about how we can make a difference locally. So it's great to order from national chains. There is some money that comes back, but we do know that mom and pops that are from our community buy here, live here, hire here. The money stays here, it doesn't go back to a corporate office. And understanding that difference without the restriction of not being able to buy from a corporate chain. So really, it's about education. And you all went first, and I know that was a lot of work to analyze all of that information and understand what's happening. The Workforce Center did a great job of talking about the benefit of that, and they have presented to our Strategic Leadership Committee, and they have embraced this idea of going further with this. Everyone thinks this is the best, easiest, lowest hanging fruit in this area, and once this gets explored, there could be other opportunities to explore other local vendors as well. But this felt like the first, easiest, biggest nut to crack in this area, and kudos to Human Services for raising your hand to go first.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, people might not even know that some people do catering or would be willing to do catering, so kind of maybe having sort of a master list then at some point of places that do that, because it's, you know, sometimes we just think, oh, this chain, we know that they have their little box of sandwiches, and that seems really easy, but, you know, so how do we make it easy for the folks who are doing those orders to say, oh, well, it's just as easy to get it, and we're supporting local business, so I think that's great work. Thank you very much.
And on the flip side, it supports local business because they may not know it's really important for us to have someone deliver the food. That sending staff to go get it isn't always possible. And so giving that feedback to small business is really helpful as well.
That's right.
Yeah, if I could comment on that, that has been a part of this ongoing conversation, interviewing those P card holders who make the food purchases to better understand what their needs are in purchasing food, and then helping to train our local businesses around that. So needing to be able to send the link out to all of the different members of the meeting and have them place their order so that then one person can purchase. All of that infrastructure isn't always there with local businesses, but then building this partnership with economic development to support those small businesses in being ready to meet our needs.
That's great work. I appreciate that. Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Shattuck McNally?
I just want to make a comment if I could.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I know one of our boards and commissions, I won't name which one, but they've been having food brought in the evenings for their monthly meetings, and I see that we've been really trying to use local business, restaurants and trying different varieties of food. And I know our boards and commissions commented on it because they appreciated learning about these other businesses or restaurants they hadn't tried before, and to try something different and new that they hadn't tried before, and it got them to explore these businesses. So I just wanted to share that I've seen that kind of be a benefit for exposing these other places to new taste buds. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to build on those comments by Commissioner Shattuck McNally, I want to make sure that one of the things that one of our advisory boards, the Ag Advisory Board, in their work plan, we are looking to work with CSU to do an economic impact analysis of doing a better job of purchasing locally grown food, and so an extension is involved in that, of course, and Carrie Weiner, our director. So just want to make sure that in terms of the purchasing analysis, where it makes sense that there's some intersection there, supporting local food producers, because I think that's a high priority, and there will be this interesting economic analysis, and I think that might inform some of this. But Carrie would know more about that.
Great, thank you.
I can try is probably more accurate. So other pieces of this particular sub-objective, Economic and Workforce Development is doing a business outreach project called How to Do Business with Anchor Institutions. They're building scopes of work for businesses and providing feedback and training to be managed by their retail food safety coordinator. Not theirs, but out of the Extension Office. Also, I think last quarter we mentioned the local industry grant, Hire, Train, and Retain, LITER grant. Those grant applications have been turned in, and they should be making those grant awards sometime this quarter. Those grants are to provide training for small businesses to really upskill their efforts. And then Economic and Workforce Development is considering creating a county vision statement for an equitable economy. And so they will be coming back at a future work session on that. Finally, sub-objective 2B, supporting the development of Northern Colorado's care workforce. They are currently reviewing the memorandum of understanding with Early Childhood Center for Larimer County for action and alignment to scale opportunities really for an all care economy workforce. They are focusing on linguistic opportunities for workforce and training in care fields, child care, adult care, care for individuals with disabilities and things like that. And then this link is in the presentation because they were featured, I believe it was in a newscast, about a nurse well-being conference that they hosted back in February of 2025, really to thank nursing staff in our area for all their hard work and appreciate what they go through. That is all for objective 2, and also goal 2, quality of life. If there are any questions?
Any questions or thoughts on goal 2? No. Commissioner Shattuck McNally?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I think we can move on.
All right. And finally, to goal 1, which is related to a resilient, equitable, and engaged community. Objective 1, communicating with the public, and that's really around communicating the work that has been done both in this strategic plan and in prior strategic plans. If you remember, the objective team leader, Michelle Bird, provided a presentation on their mile markers and momentum project. They were awaiting word whether they would receive funding for that as part of the carryover process. And I'm happy to say we did find that funding for them. And so they are currently working on finding vendors to create those graphics and some of the story maps that go along with that she previewed. And they are starting to develop that initial framework for the badging system that she showed. So they're hoping probably in May there would be an update at a future work session or perhaps at the next quarterly work session. Any questions on that?
Any questions? Questions, Commissioner Shattuck McNally?
No, I think I'm excited to see this project go forward, and I think it will be really interesting to see how it highlights all of our partnerships. Thanks.
Thank you.
So objective 2 is improving accessibility to the county. The first sub-objective is related to improving our engagement with the community through a single platform. We have not yet started work on that. But for sub-objective 2B, evaluating legacy systems to ensure compliance, I will turn it over to Mackenzie Lowe, who is the sub-objective team leader for this.
Yes. Hello. Good afternoon. Again, I'm Mackenzie Lowe, the ADA coordinator. So we have done a lot in this field, in this one in particular. Our vendor engagement with Slalom is nearly over. It will end in early May. And they have finished their assessment and they're working on their recommendations for our next portion of this project. So I'm looking forward to this one. And then they're currently putting together a training plan that will also roll out the last week of April. So, and this training plan is a train the trainer to start with, and then it gets disseminated from there to everyone in the county. And there's 4 pieces to this training, and it doesn't apply to every county employee, mind you. So there's only one that does, and that's our fundamentals of accessibility, digital accessibility. It's the only one that every county employee will end up going through. The other 3 are those specifically targeted at specific county employees and their jobs that relate to digital accessibility, like document creation for the public, for example, our web editors, and our application specialists. So, yep.
Any questions for Mackenzie?
No, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Kafalis?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mackenzie. Nice to see you. Thanks for all your good work, important work. Can you remind us, with the state legislation that was passed, seems like a lifetime ago, I thought there was a bit of a reprieve from the effective date where websites had to be. Can you speak to that a little bit? Have we passed that deadline, or are we in good shape? Is that coming up July 1st of this year, or is it next year? Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, that deadline, it started from House Bill 21-1110, so a long time ago, right? And then, honestly, the last handful of years of trying to figure out what those parameters were led to the extension, which was last year. And then that extension goes into effect technically July 1st of this year. And it's where local and state governments have to have their plan in place for improving digital accessibility. And we have to show good faith effort for it.
And we will have our.
Yes, and our
in
plan
place.
will definitely be in place by then.
Once again, it seems that Larimer County often is doing their best to lead the pack.
Yes,
Yes.
that is very true. I get a lot of phone calls and questions about this from other entities.
Well, thank you for your leadership on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does it work with, I understand that we can control what we can control, but what about documents that are, and systems that are sort of legacy systems or systems that come from the state or federal government that, do they have to meet those same requirements? Do we have to try to tweak any of that kind of work? Or, I think about like in applying for benefits and things like that in human services. Are we responsible for anything that comes down from the federal government to make sure that that is all accessible to? Or is there some leeway to say, this is not our system and we have no effect on this?
This is the gray area of the entire thing, I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely the gray area. So there are things we can do to state to the public that, yes, we recognize this is not fully accessible. So there's things like that we can do that are part of the plan. And Slalom is working with us to figure out what we should do for those. So hopefully we'll see something by the
Yeah.
next update for sure.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious about that. I was like,
Yeah.
there's certain things that we just, we don't have a ton of control over, yet we're required to administer those things, and so, okay. So
Yeah.
I did find the gray area.
Yes, you did, and that's okay.
All right, well, thanks. I know this has been a lot of work, and I appreciate, your perseverance on this and your leadership in the state, because I think everybody is trying to figure out how to do this well and understands the value of it and also understands the difficulty. Like, I feel like PDFs were a big issue. Were PDFs a big issue? Was that one of the
Yes.
things I kept hearing? Okay.
Yes, they are a big issue.
Okay, and still are. There's
They
no.
still are.
Okay. All right, well, good luck to you. Thank you for your work, and I appreciate everything.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, sorry.
Oh, please, go
I
ahead.
have this beautiful voice going. This is really a value of the county, and so we got ahead of this because we do want to make our stuff accessible online. So it doesn't feel like such a stretch for us philosophically. Practically speaking, a lot of the things we have online are very old documents. They'll still be available in person, if not online. So they don't go away. If there's something that a member of the public remembers they used to be able to find online, please call in. We have those documents. They do still exist. We will make them available like we would any other document. As we go forward, new things will be available in accessible format. And the backlog will grow again, that's available to the public electronically. But please know they've not gone anywhere, and we have them available.
Thank you. That's a great reminder to the public. Appreciate
Yes,
that.
yes. And then I have one last thing that
Oh, yeah, please go
nearly
ahead.
forgot
Sorry.
about. So we applied for a SIPA grant in early February. That was to help fund the second part of this project, which is the implementation, the actual fixing of said documents, web pages, applications, that part of it. And hopefully we'll get an update if we'll get rewarded it at the end of April or early May. So
Well, good luck. I hope that comes through.
I
That
hope
will
so
help.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the budget office will need to reach out to you because we put PDFs that we download from a federal system on our web. We're required to put it on our website, and I'm not sure that they're accessible or not. So remind me to reach out to you.
Yes.
And thank you for your help. The final objective is Objective 3, maximizing partner relationships within Goal 1. This team has been doing a lot of work lately and so has some proposed additional sub-objective language. These are not changes, but rather new language that would go into the plan. The first item, we actually provided a preview for this at the last quarterly update. That is related to connecting the local nonprofit sector and county government to align and support legislative priorities and foster civic engagement. And then there are others as well. And Lori, did you want to discuss those?
Yes, thanks, Josh. Lori Cadridge, Assistant County Manager, and happen to be the goal steward of this objective. Or I guess I would be the objective steward of this.
Team leader.
Thank you. I'm something for this objective. So the first one that Josh mentioned, I wanted to add some good news that happened as we went out to the nonprofit sector and began to talk to them about how we might, as an organization, help them with legislative issues or efforts. One of the first things that they said is, we don't know how legislation works. So could we get like a legislation 101 course? And so our partners with NOCO Foundation and Shane put together a 101 course. It was so well received, they asked for a second one. So we've done 2 of those courses. So we'll likely have a continuing objective to do training for the nonprofit sector under that. Then as part of this goal, one of the things we heard from the community is we don't always know what you're doing well at now. And so we looked at some of the regional programs that have either been started by Larimer County or that are emerging from Larimer County, including the co-responder program, the behavioral health initiatives, and potentially the BEAD or the broadband program, depending on what happens with funding. So that team got together and they came up with 3 new objectives that we have listed up there, and I'm not going to read them to you because I want to highlight, in the short amount of time we have left, I want to highlight the good work that we heard from Sergeant Cook that's happening in the behavioral health field with the co-responder units. I'm sure you remember that Sergeant Cook was one of the leaders that put together the Colorado State Association for co-responder units, and he's also very active at the national level. And he reported to the group how much growth there's been in agencies using the co-responder model. The Thompson School District is so committed to the model that even with their funding challenges, they added 2, and they're hiring their client support folks directly now, rather than through a third party. That does a couple of things for them. It makes them part of their own school district team, and it lowers the cost because they don't have to pay a third party to do that work. So Sergeant Cook is also talking to Poudre School District to see if Poudre School District would be agreeable to a similar kind of process. He also reported on some of the impact that these units are having with the schools on a day-to-day basis. And I don't know how Josh felt, but I was surprised at the volume of calls that they're going on a regular basis to the school system. And it's a wide range of types of calls, And the one thing that he was very interested in and thought was working well is that it was stopping escalation of situations when students then would go home or go to other locations. And so he was very supportive of the work that's happening with his team. And that's what I wanted to share because it's such good news.
That's great news. I also, with regard to time, I have this down till 3:30, so not that we have to go that long, but.
I have to leave at 3.
Okay.
I have a 3 o'clock stop.
Okay, perfect. Commissioner Shattuck
Madam
McNally?
Chair,
Yep,
can I add to this?
please
You
go
know,
ahead.
I've been a big champion of the co-responder program and Sergeant Cook's work, and I'm drawing a blank on her name. Jacobs, Deputy Jacobs, who helps start the kind of co-responder program that won Woman of the Year for USA Today last year for her work in this field. But we've been supporting and helping expand that co-responder group through the opioid abatement money for the last 3 years. And they went from only be able to respond to about 27% of the calls that they were able to respond to almost, I think they're on over 60% of the calls. So the need is still there, and this a need for funding to keep that group going. And they hired a sergeant who's actually been doing a phenomenal job with the data. And the data has been very helpful for the Opioid Abatement Council to see how this all interrelates. I'm very proud that State of Colorado was the first to do a co-responder proclamation that the governor did, and we shared with Sergeant Cook, and that our county was the second county by 2 days. Only we would have been first with this co-responder proclamation. I believe it was last year. So I'm hoping we'll do that again this year. And I just want to say it's really a tremendous program. And one data point from that they have is with the people that they contact, and this is even beyond the students, is only 2% of the folks who are contacted by co-responders end up being into the criminal justice system. They mostly end up putting them in safety plans and referring them to resources. So I just wanted to share that 2% number. That's pretty striking to me, that we're diverting people into resources and helping them with their work. So I just wanted to share those numbers. I think they're pretty striking, and as you know, I'm a huge fan and grateful that we were able to support that expansion of all those programs. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cavalas, any comments or questions?
Just to say thank you to Lori. The more good news you can share anytime, the better.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as the language goes, I mean, this seems good to me. I mean, I'm glad we did it with input from the community, and so I think that it's, I'm definitely supportive of doing, changing that language in the sub-objective.
I concur.
I support as well.
And I'm really excited to hear about the 101 course for the training around how legislation works, because it is tricky, and sometimes I feel like I don't even know how it works. And so I think that having them advocate for themselves really helps empower them around a lot of these issues that are happening at the state capitol and maybe happening locally as well. Then it's not the reliance on sort of what are you doing. They can help themselves with some of these issues and will understand that better, and then ultimately can advocate and even help create some of this legislation themselves. So I kudos that you and Shane actually had time to do that, because I mean that's but I think that piece is huge. I think that's really important for us to empower those local nonprofits.
That reminds me, the name of the program is Advocacy 101, and I'm not sure I mentioned that earlier for the very reasons that you mentioned. And Shane did that program on his own with a NOCO Foundation employee named Jody, who's also on our goals team. So she's one of our community representatives.
That's wonderful. I really appreciate that. Commissioner Cavalas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lori. Just a quick comment to maybe to look at the Advocacy 101 curriculum because with the legislative process, oftentimes folks think that once a bill becomes law, then you're done. And I wonder if there's a component of it that talks about the rulemaking process, which is how you actually implement the laws. You might bring that back to Shane or NOCO. If that's included, great. If it's not, I think there should be at least a reference to rulemaking as another part of the advocacy.
Thank you, good suggestion.
Okay, anything else on this one, or we're all good?
No.
Just that last item there, the NOCO Foundation is still working on the gap analysis, trying to find those 14 or 15 items, which they reference as gold standards that can move the needle on major topics like childcare, housing, the economy, energy use, all sorts of things. So that work is continuing, and they say that it may be done by the end of 2025. So we may have an update on that early next year. That concludes the update on our goals and objectives. The only next step I really have to report is that our next work session will be in July to report on progress made in the second quarter of the year. And that concludes the presentation.
Wonderful. Any comments or questions before we wrap up? Commissioner Collis?
Well, just, I suppose, add to the appreciation that has been expressed throughout the afternoon. Thanks for managing, coordinating this. It's part of your responsibility, so well done.
Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any comments or questions before we end today? Okay, County Manager Lorenda Volker, anything you want to add?
I'll keep it brief because I have to. Josh has done a great job coordinating with these teams. We have more teams than we've ever had before, and keeping track of this information is challenging. But you have done a remarkable job just keeping everybody on track and moving forward, keeping the momentum going. We know that things happen at different speeds along the way. You see one already completed, and some will take the full 5 years. And so this is a long-term concerted effort to move the community forward in these ways. And I think Josh is a lot of kudos to you for getting that done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Josh. You know, we're sort of a year into the planning, and I just, in looking back, I'm really grateful we did the engagement we did, because these still really stand as really important issues in our community. And so I know that it's additional work on your end, and I appreciate the work that you're doing, but I think a lot of this work is more important than ever. And so, I mean, you think about identifying grants or transportation funding, helping vulnerable populations. I mean, this is all stuff that has become increasingly important as we move through 2025 and all its surprises. So I just thank you for keeping everything rolling, and it's pretty exciting that we have one item already completed, so that feels good. But thank you to everybody, and a lot of the people had to leave, but I appreciate that this is very much not only staff-driven and, staff work, but community work and I love how the community is engaged in all of these, because that's how we want to do our work, is in collaboration with the community. And so this, there's every single goal and every single sub-objective has community involvement, and so I feel really great about the work that we're doing, and I hope you do too. So.
Definitely, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the hard work done by all the folks that you mentioned too, the members of the teams and the objective team leaders and goal stewards. So they've made it easy.
All right. Well, we'll keep going because we got to do this through 2028. So, but wonderful work, everyone, and we will adjourn now. It's 3:02. Thanks, everyone.